Good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to see you all here today. I want to thank you guys and welcome for coming. I see Miss Trudy. I see Miss lovely Fran Desal herself, Executive Director of the BBPA. I see Mr. Ross Kadas, the VP of the BBPA. I see a lovely cat named AJ, Sheldon, Dwayne, and a few others as well. Welcome today, and thank you for joining us. We're going to start off with our land acknowledgement. Welcome on behalf of the Ask the Professional series, brought to you by the Black Business Professional Association. We would like to sit down there and take a moment just to acknowledge who you are and having you here. I'll give you a few more minutes for those to come on board. A few more minutes. Good afternoon, Sheldon. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Shauna.
Hello, everyone.
Good afternoon. Another 15 seconds and we'll get started. Good afternoon. Well, welcome again to Ask Professional series brought to you by the Black Business Professional Association. Today's program is one of many programs brought to you by the BBPA as we seek to understand and respond to provide services, resources, and support for our community.
Alert from Microsoft Word.
Wow.
Microsoft Word.
Hello? Okay. I'm your host, Anton James, a marketing and strategy consultant and event host and moderator. Today's program is the Ask Professional series, which is an interactive discussion-based series where we come together and discuss topics and issues that are affecting our community. Topics have ranged from things such as improving yourself, your business, and your family. Issues with industry, mental health, equity, diversity and inclusion, shadeism and Black hair, celebrations of awards winners, both past and present, and community leaders. Regardless of the topic, the goal is the same: to provide an inviting platform where we as a community can come together and have candid conversations on issues that mean the matter to us. So with that said, let's get into our topic today. Today we'll be discussing navigating the pandemic, Help and Resource Support Center, and healthcare resources for the Black community. But before we get started, I'd like to invite the VP of the BBPA, Mr. Ross Kadas, to come and give us a few greetings and share a few words. Mr. Ross Kadas.
Thank you, Anton, and welcome everyone. Thank you, Dwight, for taking the time to share insights with our community. The pandemic has really beaten us up globally. It's not only the Black community, it's touched every single person around the world. So as a community, it's important that we know how to navigate this pandemic and the resources that are available for us as a community. As most of you, if not everybody, knows, yesterday was the first, the anniversary of George Floyd's murder, I'll say. And, you know, as a community, I want to remind everybody on the call that we have to bind together and we have to ensure that his death wasn't in vain for us as a community. So as we talk about health as a community, as we talk about opportunities for business people, Black business people, and you will start to hear more about the loan fund that is being launched that supports Black business. It's important that we take all of that into consideration as a community, and we learn and we grow together. And that's the basis of Ask a Professional, an opportunity for us to learn, for us to share insights and share as a community. So I thank you all for attending. I thank you, Dwight, for making the time to share with us. And Anton, as usual, keep doing what you're doing. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Ross. I really appreciate your feedback and your insight and putting in context, particularly as relates to what's going in society today and as we think about the anniversary of George Floyd. Well, now let's just pivot a bit and let's jump into our program today. Today is one of the days we're celebrating not only a Black entrepreneur and a leader within the community itself, but we're celebrating someone that's making effort to help our community as we navigate this pandemic. So who are we talking about? Who is this panelist? So the first question, who is this individual? His name is Dwight Townsend. And who is Dwight Townsend? He's the founder and president of GoMedics Health, a medical transportation company that provides non-urgent transportation for seniors, older adults, and people with disabilities, or for those with chronic mental health impairments. Dubbed the Uber Health, GoMedics Health is a Black-owned that is playing a key role in the pandemic. GoMedics Health is working to support the community infrastructure and resources during the pandemic, and a host of additional support services that will continue after the pandemic has subsided. So with that said, first of all, welcome, Mr. Dwight Townsend.
Thank you, Anton. Thank you.
How are you, Dwight?
Very well. Very well. How you doing?
I'm not so bad, as I said. Not quite as fancy as you with the suit and tie, but I love it, though. I love it.
It's my TV debut, so Anton, you have to represent,
okay.
right?
That's okay. That's okay. You look quite sharp. Let's talk about you, man. Let's jump back a bit. It's good to see you today, but let's go back into a trip back into your history. You know, help us to understand your upbringing, your goals, and your career path.
Great. Well, I immigrated to Canada when I was 13. I came to live with my mom, who had been in Canada since I was actually 4. So it was quite a reunion. When I came to Canada, I wasn't even able to pick up my mom out of a crowd, because my mom came to Canada when I was actually 2, and I didn't see her again until I was 13 when I came to live with her. So, and of course, back then you didn't have iPhones, you didn't have the internet as much, instant messaging wasn't available, all this technological advancement just wasn't as prevalent as it was today. So, communication was literally writing letters, 3 to 6 weeks, or 4 to 6 weeks rather. And I know those timelines very well, because when I go to the post office, I'd actually check to see, is it 3 weeks yet? Is it 4 weeks yet? When is that letter gonna come, right? So, I came to live with her when I was 13, and, went through the school system here, middle school, university, and yeah, just a regular upbringing, I guess, to a single mom. We had our challenges like most single parent would, whether you're a mother or father, and always been very entrepreneurial since Jamaica, and it's just something that I took with me, and really landed me where I am today in terms of dealing with this company, GoMedics Health.
Okay, so you jumped all the way from landing to GoMedics Health. Let's go in between. Along the way, did you find any systemic challenges or any hurdles that you had to overcome that was part of that helped shape the way you were?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Some of them was obvious. Some of them was more blatant. Some of them was, you were kind of naive to them. Like, I remember one particular time, I came here fairly well. So, I think I acclimated fairly quickly. I wasn't the kind of teenager or a kid that my mom had a lot of issue with. I was always interested in school, because this was one of the few things I excel at. So obviously you want to push towards things that you excel at, and things that you have accolades or brings you some praises, so to speak. So school's always something that I did fairly well. So, going through the school system, doing fairly well, acclimating very well, you kind of somehow turn a blind eye to some of the systemic issue and racialized issues that you'd hear your peers or even older adults talking about. I remember in high school in particular, you used to have what I call the radical kids before Black Lives Matter. And I was, in the back of my mind, I was always like, I haven't really experienced that until you experience it. So the time that I experienced something really that kind of just shaped my trajectory in terms of how I see the world and how I see myself as a racialized person in Canada was I was walking close to my house, and I got pulled. Well, I didn't get pulled over because it was on foot, but really guns were drawn, and I was given the party line that I looked like somebody that they're looking for, and it was a really unpleasant experience. And I think that kind of brought me into a more consciousness in terms of how you present in Canada, and what that presentation mean in a broader societal context. So obviously it wasn't me, the person that they were looking for. My mom was very upset and was very Jamaican about it when she went to the police station. So that's one. Also, when I was going to high school, and I would tell the counselors that I wanted to do certain things, like I wanted to go into law or accounting. I was always steered towards lesser aspirations, if you will. My dreams and my aspirations were always kind of scaled back based on who I spoke to. And as the school started becoming more representative, or more Black teachers started coming to the school, that narrative and that encouragement started to shift. So certainly, I was young, but you have this mindset that it doesn't affect me until it does, and when it does, you really change your perspective. So I would definitely have to say, absolutely, I think we all have those experiences.
Perfect. So now that we have, okay, so we have the background, and then you mentioned Go Medics. In between, what was your career path? What was your career aspiration? Like, did you go straight from school directly to here? Talk to us a bit about that.
No, so my career path was also very challenging. So my getting into university was actually left from a shelter to go to university, because my mom reunion story wasn't the greatest. My mom was struggling financially, and she wanted me to get a job, and I didn't want to get a job. I wanted to go to university and get an education. I wanted to play the long game. She wasn't having that. So because of that, I was essentially asked to leave. So I actually got my university acceptance letter from the University of Guelph while living in a shelter downtown Toronto, Covenant House. So that's where my university acceptance letter came.
Wow.
Going into school, that was also a challenge, because I was going to the University of Guelph, which was about an hour, call it 2 hours from Toronto. And, I had to think about room and board and how I'm going to survive there. And OSAP was challenging because about 3 years prior to that, I was living on my own. So my credit wasn't the greatest. And in order to get OSAP, your credit had to be great. So I really like to think I started university and my career really behind the 8 ball. So a degree that should have taken me 4 years took me like 6, because every time you enroll, you don't have that tuition fee. You're de-enroll, you have to start over again. You have to make submissions as to why you belong here, as to why you can afford this. So thinking about just being at that age, trying to even survive university, you have to think about the financial pieces. So that was difficult. So definitely wasn't a smooth ride. Finally finished. I got a job. My first job, career job, if you will, was at Mount Sinai Hospital, and I started that position as an administrative coordinator. Knew nothing about healthcare, didn't study healthcare, and it was just a job. So I said to myself, if I'm in healthcare, it makes sense to further your education in healthcare. So that led me to pursuing a master's degree in health leadership. Got that. That was a struggle as well, because by now I'm a young adult trying to pay rent, trying to do it all. So again, a degree that should have taken 2 years took 4 years. Finally got that. So I think as you start to kind of break down barriers, or just really trying to survive and have dreams and have aspirations, you have to really think about how you're going to navigate those challenges. Because if the challenges are too prolonged, you will actually stop. You'll either drop out of your school, or out of your program, or out of whatever you're doing it. But you really have to know that the 2 or 3 years that they gave you, you don't have to be married to that. It's just how you manage that and how you persevere.
Perfect. Okay, so you know what I'm understanding is, so you didn't have a cakewalk through school. You didn't have an easy path, but yet you still persevered. What caused you to persevere where many others fell apart and said no, they just give it up? What was your driving force?
I think because I was brought up in Jamaica, and now that I'm a father, and you'll have kids who are born in Canada, and you have friends who are born in Canada. I think their hustle, their ambition, and their outlook are very different. So from myself, didn't have parents in Jamaica. I grew up with my grandparents, and a large, an extended family, if you will. So that mother or fatherly forgiveness or care or attention that you'd normally get just by default. You didn't get that. I didn't get that. So it really was about survival and knowing that you have to do for self. And I think I took that with me here. And I often say that Canadian kids, they have a very privileged mindset, and that not go getter, but that survival or survival at all cost mentality is often missing because it's not something that they really had to deal with. It's not part of their lived experience. For me, it was. So that was very challenging, but at the same time, it was very normal. I remember going into interviews or talking to people, and they're just amazed. They're like, "Well, how did you or what?" And I'm like, that was just my experience, and it was just an everyday thing. I
Mhm.
really didn't understand it to be that much of a challenge when I was in it because I didn't expect anything less, right?
Mhm.
So I think that's the difference.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you. For those that have just recently joined, we are talking to Dwight Townsend. He is the president and CEO of GoMedics Health, and we are about to pivot and get into that. But we want to set the framework. There's a lot of, as individuals right now, particularly in our community, are looking to launch and go forward. A lot of them think, well, I have so many obstacles against me, and we're here to show you an individual that's gone through many obstacles as well and still driven through. So if he can do it, we can do it. That's Together we can all do it. For those who are ready to ask questions, by all means, on the bottom of your screen, you're going to see a chat functionality. You can either raise your hand or write it in the chat itself. There's a raise your hand, there's a reactions button at the bottom where you can raise your hand or type in your chat as we continue this conversation. So now let's pivot. So we talked about your background. Now let's go into your business history. Help us understand your origins of GoMedic Health and how you got started.
So I got started with GoMedics Health through by accident, really. My mom had a stroke, and as much as we were pretty much estranged growing up for different reasons, I was always that sibling who knows that if mom had to go to the doctor, it's me who's gonna have to take her. If she needed something, it's me who would have to take her. So that awareness kind of influenced everything, even in terms of where I lived. My mom lived in Scarborough, and my preference was really living. My preference was really to go live in the West, but because she lives in Scarborough, I know if she needs a loaf of bread, it's easier for me to drive from Ajax than Brampton. So just that awareness of learning her, just being aware that I'm going to need to be available as she gets older, really influence where I live and how I kind of conduct myself and the resources that I would need to support that. So it brings me back to that question. GoMedic started when my mom had a stroke, and even though I'm one of four siblings, that responsibility, and I'm the youngest, that responsibility still landed on me to kind of make sure mom was okay till everybody else got there. So if mom is sick, I'm the first one who's there and make sure. And by the time everybody else get there, she's in the hospital bed, she's in the robe, she's looking fabulous, and everybody thinks it's fine, but they didn't see her prior to them getting there. So I was working at a job that gave me like 5 vacation days, and pretty quickly those vacation days were just gone. So I wanted a service that would be able to pick up my mom, take her to the doctor, bring her back, and give me a report or give me some narrative as to what the doctor said in terms of her medication, in terms of her recovery instructions, anything like that. And there really wasn't a service. There wasn't anything like that because oftentimes it would be cheaper for me to hire somebody or get somebody to drop her to the doctor as opposed to taking a day off. Or if you're a parent or you need to kind of save those days for worst case scenario because you don't know what's coming, right? So long and short of it is there wasn't a service available, and I thought this would be a really good service because certainly busy working professionals who don't want to take a day off, who can't take a day off, or who just simply want a break would be able to call the service, take their loved one to the doctor, and bring them back again. And there wasn't one available, so I decided to create one. And because I was in healthcare, I was very familiar with just healthcare needs and a lot of needs that are or gaps that are in the market that are not being filled, particularly in the Black community. And so I decided Go Medics Health, start a company that will pretty much be like a Uber Health, take you to the doctor and back. And but the difference is instead of just a John Doe or a Jane Doe, we will actually send a nurse or
Whoa, hold on, stop now. One step at a time, man. One step at a time. 'Cause I want to get there because
Okay.
you know what? I want to make sure we're very clear. Oftentimes we talk about our businesses, but it's so second nature to us that we don't break it down and show the difference.
Correct.
So
correct. Correct.
let's take one step at a time. The idea is a phenomenal idea. I think it's intuitive.
Yeah.
But when you went to launch, was it a smooth path? Do you like, this is a great idea, great acceptance. It just sort of took off from day one. Is that what happened? Was that the process?
It wasn't a smooth launch, but there was business from day one because there were neighbors, there were people that I knew. Like everybody has a family member, a friend, somebody who was sick in some capacity, whether they're recovering from a stroke, whether they had cancer, where they just you need to get to the doctor somehow, and transportation is a big barrier. So I started in a very small, defined, like friends of friends of friends, and then the word started spreading. And then I said, you know what do I do to scale this, right? And so even though I still had a full-time job, this was really something that was really important to me, and it just started to really build capacity. And once it started to build capacity, as a small company, had to start to think about how do I scale this business, how do I scale this idea.
And when you're talking about when you started and you were growing and scaling, were the challenges, were they unique to the Black community? You think they're well, they'll leave it right there. Was it unique to the Black community, or how do you perceive it?
I don't think the challenges are unique to the Black community, but I think the Black community suffered disproportionately, and here's why. I think Black health beliefs are very different, and we even see this in the pandemic now. Depending on who you talk to, people are running to get a shot. The next person will say, well, I'm not ready, I'm not having no shot, nobody's putting anything in. So you see the same type of conversation happen right across the spectrum as it relates to health for different reasons. I know for Caribbean folks in particular, it's a taboo to put your loved one in a nursing home, right? I used to joke with my mom and say, well, you better be nice to me or else I'm going to send you to Shady Pines. So it's a big thing. So based on those healthcare beliefs, the expectations are not different, but I think we suffer disproportionately. And I'll give you an example. If, for example, you have an elderly person, whether it's your mom, your dad, or a loved one who you need to put in a nursing home, the Black community in general often say, I'm not doing that because that's not how we were raised. We're raised to take care of our own, and which is great, but sometimes you're going to stretch yourself to take care of mom in your home, and mom is not going to get the best care because of what you believe or how you grew up. So the patient, your mom or dad, suffer disproportionately because you don't have the capacity to take care of them at home, and you start to decline because you can't work, be a mom, be a dad, and take care of an elderly parent effectively as well. So I think there's pros and cons, and I think we need to put things in place that will support people in the Black community who want to keep their loved one at home, and also things that you need to put in place to say if God forbid you want to send them to a home, they're also supported there as well. So I don't think the challenges are unique to the Black community, but I think based on how we live and what we believe, it shapes how those responsibilities ought to be managed.
So I agree with you. So let me ask you the last question before we pivot again and actually jump into your business now and how it works, the service and so forth. What is the biggest challenge with penetrating our community? Do you think it's people don't need it, or really it's just they're not aware? They're not aware that these services are available. They don't know how. What do you believe is the biggest challenge for a slower penetration than one might think, given the cultural background you just referenced?
I think people definitely need it, and I think the Black community in particular need it.
Agreed.
oftentimes, again, just referring to the pandemic, you know that a lot of they've said that COVID has disproportionately affected the Black community on every level, because we have a lot of people in the Black community on the front lines in healthcare, so they're going to be disproportionately affected. We have a lot of PSW, we have a lot of RNs, we are in healthcare a lot on at the level of the front line. So you're going to be disproportionately affected. Similarly to your question, what does it take to kind of, do we need it, or how do you penetrate that market? We definitely need it, because we're working 2 and 3 and 4 jobs. And it would be great to have a service or a solution that you don't necessarily have to worry about so much, that you just call and get on, you have your loved one be picked up, taken to the doctor, dropped
Hold
home.
on now, hold on. We're about to come there. We're about to come there, because that's you. That's you. We got you covered. You know what? To the question, Shauna brought back a great point. She said it is awareness and trust, that she says one of the biggest obstacles to overcome. And I would agree with you. I would agree with you. A great point, Shauna. Thank you for that. So now let's jump into it, because we've talked about it, we've talked around it, we've talked about some of the needs. Help us to understand. Give us some more detail, now specific detail on your company, your services, your current and target clients, and your operations. Now let's talk about it.
Okay, so we're still a relatively small company.
Mhm.
We have like 5 employees at the moment. So the company at the core, we're a transportation company with medical transport. So if you need to get to the doctor and back with a nurse, with a PSW or a healthcare professional, we will take you there. And really that's our value add. So when people say, well, you could take a taxi, you could take Uber, I'm saying, well, Uber is not going to give you a nurse. They're not going to give you a PSW. They're not going to give you that touch, because we are in healthcare. We're healthcare professionals. We understand what touch means, and you're going to get that with us, right? So that's what we do. In terms of our target audience, we essentially target seniors, older adults, because there is a difference, and I learned that the hard way. A senior is very different than an older adult. Do not call an older adult a senior. So seniors, older adults, and essentially anyone who really needs to get to a doctor and a doctor's appointment with care. We do that. You call us, and we will do that for you. We will communicate once we get to your location to pick you up. We'll communicate when we're in transit. We'll communicate again once we get there, and we do the same once all the way back home to the destination that we're dropping off the person. And then we have wait and return service, or we can simply just pick you up and drop you off. So they're different type of service. And to Shauna's point, a matter of trust. Absolutely, to trust somebody with your loved one in this capacity, it's huge, and we work very hard to ensure that we build that trust, and we maintain that relationship with our clients. But also, it's about the financing and to the Black community. Anton, to your point earlier, when you said what are some of the challenges or barrier, unfortunately, this is something that it's a fee for service, and our community sometimes, or that population being seniors, older adults, they're pensioners, they're on fixed income, it can be expensive. So, I mean, that's definitely a barrier, but the service, well worth it.
Well, you hit a few things in there, and I want to slow it down a little bit, because I want to make sure people understand. Because, yeah, that is going to be one of the questions that people would ask. Why use you and not just send a taxi? But what you mentioned is that your loved one, you may want to ensure that they have someone going with them that they feel comfortable with. Absolutely. That when they get there, you said talk, let's break that down once again for clarity, because it's really isn't. Shauna was dead on when you hit it. A lot of people, it's their parents, it's their family, it's their aunts, their uncle, and so forth. And they want to make sure they can trust the environment. They don't know what they're experiencing. Break it down slowly, because to you, again, it's intuitive and it makes a whole bunch of sense. But for someone that's never experienced it and is doing everything themselves, they may not know. So break it down again. What does an average call look like or a job when someone calls you? What would it look like?
So an average call will look like this. Welcome to GoMedix Health. How may we help you? I need a ride to take my mom to the doctor next Tuesday. Okay, old is your. So we go through a list of what we call an intake. Get the age of your mom, your date of birth, your date of birth, your age, your date of birth, your date of birth, your age, 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 your Is she wheelchair bound? Does she have any type of barriers in terms of mobility? We get to know the person we're transporting, because oftentimes we have to know who we're transporting in order to match them with the best skilled person, right? So we get an intake in terms of the age of your mom. Is she in a wheelchair? Does she use any type of mobile aids that she'll need assistance? Does she need any type of specialty care while she's in transit? Is she on medication? What are those medication? Any type of cognitive or mental health impairments that we need to be aware of, just for safety reasons as well.
Mhm.
And we look at so we go into a lot of detail just to make sure we know who we're transporting, and that person is going to have the best experience during the transport, right?
So you have
and
the
we go-
background on the individual. Once they come to the house, then what? So
Absolutely.
they come to the house, they go to a stop. Do they?
No,
Where?
so once we do that, we ask them, where are we picking up from? Are we picking up from a hospital? Are we picking up from a nursing home? Are we picking up from a bedside? Because sometimes people are literally in bed. Where are we picking up the person from? And what support will they need when we come to pick them up? Oftentimes it's from their home, right? And we have had pickups from nursing homes, etc. But oftentimes it's from their home. When we come to your home, you know the name of the driver, the arrival time. We arrive, we pick up the person, we let you, Anton, know, if you're the one who's making the call on behalf of your mom, that we have arrived.
So the first point is upon arrival.
Upon arrival, absolutely.
Then go again.
Second, departure.
At departure. Okay.
Right.
2. Yep.
And 3, when we're in transit.
In
4,
transit. That's 3. Go ahead.
Arrival time at the physicians or the
4, when you arrive at the physician. Okay.
Right. And when they're in with the physician, you get notification that they're in with the physician.
Notification. All right. Keep going. Keep coming.
When the visit with the healthcare provider is complete, you get notified that visit is complete.
All right.
We are now in transit back to dropping off your loved one.
You know what? I was very specific about that, and the reason why, and again, because particularly, thank God my mother is not in that capacity at this point, but believe me, I don't want to hear say someone want to take it and go for pizza. No, I want to hear the process very smooth and very, it's very centric all the way through. By the way, there was a question someone was asking, very specific, is what service areas do you cover? Because your services are needed. What service areas do you cover?
So we cover pretty much the GTA. We cover Durham region. We cover Peel, and we cover
Peel,
and York at the moment.
Perfect. So no, that is actually really good. So help us to understand. Well, right now, I know that so the transportation is your core. That's what you do. You provide a full solution of suites, providing whether they're challenged, any form of challenges, reporting, take them to back and forth, keep them secure. But this pandemic has really changed business for a lot of people. How has the pandemic changed you guys? Has it altered your services at all? And if so, how?
Actually, the pandemic has been very good to us because of the pandemic. The pandemic has probably put us on the map more so than before, right? Because when the pandemic hit, a lot of people were afraid to travel in public domain, right? On public transit, in taxis, they were just afraid to travel. And also organizations were having problem moving their clients. Hospitals are having issues moving their clients. So they call us to, we became the de facto kind of COVID transport, right? So our challenge post-COVID is going to have to say, no, we do more than COVID transport, right? So because a lot of people now know us as the company that transport COVID or COVID suspect or COVID positive clients. And certainly that's not what we do, but right now in the context of the pandemic, we do a lot of that. So COVID has been very good to our business because simply it has increased our numbers significantly.
Okay, that's absolutely great. So for those who joined, I saw the continue going on. We are speaking to Dwight Townsend. He is the president and CEO of GoMedix Health. His website is gomedixhealth.ca, and he serves the GTA as we stand right now. And he provides medical transportation for those and the loved ones. We're now talking about, specifically though, Medical transport has been one thing. It was primarily to senior adults. I think it was a term that you said you enjoyed, and those with impairments. How else have you shifted in this pandemic? Because the reality is you have to shift during this pandemic and you're going to shift after. So what are you doing to look forward to your long-term longevity? Not only to succeed now, but to succeed long-term.
I think one of the things that was blatantly obvious to us while we're operating in the context of the pandemic was our bread and butter is definitely medical transport. We want to assist people in getting to and from the doctor. As we like to say, getting there is really half the battle. And if you don't get to see, you can't get to see your healthcare provider or physician, it really is a barrier to your future health or to your recovery. So really that's our main stake. What we have really started to look at and what we have started to do, we're trying to expand our services into home care. Because what was happening, we're transporting a lot of people who are in need of healthcare services, but we're just taking them to the doctor and back. And they still need home care. They still need care while they're back in their destination. We have already made a great connection with them. We have a relationship with them because some people we transport all the time. And so it would be great because we have already established that relationship to start doing nursing care and nursing support services in the home. So we started to do home and community care now, and that's really where we see ourselves in a long-term space.
I want to stop for a minute and pivot for two things. One, I want to acknowledge what you're saying. Mm-hmm. So when this pandemic hit, many companies took the shutdown and they shut down. Mm-hmm. But you not only pivoted to doing medical transportation, but then you started specializing and doing things specifically in the pandemic to response to the COVID scenario. Yeah. Now you're also saying you're looking to go forward and continue to pivot, and you've met contact with them, but going deep within those relationships that you currently have. I want to acknowledge you for that for a couple of reasons. One, I love to see as a Black man doing your thing. I love that. But more, it's showing the adaptability of our businesses, the adaptability and the need for us as individuals and business owners to look to pivot where opportunities lie, and sometimes to expand within your deeper one. So I continue to congratulate you on that one. I think it's actually phenomenal. I think that's actually good. I want to go get a little more understanding onto what that could look like, who you're servicing right now and who you'd like to service. But I want to take a quick moment. For those that are in the audience, if you have any questions, you can go down to the bottom of your screen. You can put it in the chat. I've been seeing some comments. Some are coming to me directly. Some are going to the areas. If you're too shy, you can either raise your hand, or you're too shy, you can tap in the chat and I'll ask them for you. Let's now pivot back to you. So in this pandemic, you said you're providing medical services. Now, specific to the COVID, we're still in the COVID. We're still in where people are going for the vaccination and going for their shots. How specifically are you helping them, and what are you specifically doing to support that initiative? And second of all, you'd mentioned to diversify aftercare, particularly within our community, as that's your ideal target. But what some of those services would look like. Talk to us a bit about that.
So in terms of COVID right now, we started COVID care, as we say, with transporting people who need to get a COVID, not before the shot, before the vaccination, COVID testing. So in the testing phase, we were transporting people to get tested, and we were contracted by organizations to take people to and from getting their test and also to isolation centers. So there's 80% of the time these people were COVID positive, right? So we were transporting them to, you've heard the hotel isolation hubs or designated centers where people were COVID positive or waiting to get their tests, or got their tests and waiting for their results. So we did a lot of that work. Right now we're in the vaccination stage, and you still have a lot of challenges, people trying to get vaccinated, right? So we started also taking people to different vaccination clinics, pop-up hubs, the mobile satellite centers. We started to do that. And then to pivot post COVID, we're really going to start to look at, and we already start to look at that, aftercare for the Black community. It's not enough to say that the Black community has been disproportionately affected by COVID. There's a reason for that, and that's not going to go away after COVID. And one of the ways we want to build sustainability into that, or we want to service the Black community into that, you have a lot of healthcare organization and agencies that supports the Jewish community, the South Asian community, the Asian Chinese community, very specific to cultural health, if you will. And we don't necessarily have that. Of course, we have Taibu. Everybody's a bit aware of Taibu, but Taibu is predominantly what we call primary care, where you see a physician. What is missing, and there's a big gap, is community services or community and allied, what they call allied health. And we want to get into home care. People who need home care or home support or self-managed care in their home. We want to get into that space, particularly for Black people. And so we're started to look at how you kind of add that service on top of the transportation piece that we do.
Again, I think that's actually phenomenal. You hit a key point, and we're going around and we're hitting it many times. Within our community, there is definitely a challenge with, our parents stay with us as long as humanly possible. And so that comfort, the fact that you actually know what you're coming from our community, is far easier for us to understand and relate to that. So let's move forward. You talked about that. You talked about what's next for you. Help us to understand now. You have now successfully pivoted. Why were you able to pivot? And how are you going to pivot going forward? Are you looking to just expand with your services? Are you looking to expand geographically? Talk to us about what's the next step for you as an organization.
Next step for me is just really the support. And I have to say, for what it's worth, I have a lot of support. A lot of my support come from outside the Black community. And I'd really like to see that change moving forward. In terms of what I need, I would actually need, I want my services to be part of the system, part of the healthcare system. So instead of calling GoMedics specifically and worry about, can I afford this? I want this to be part of a subsidized program, part of what they call now the Ontario Health. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the local health, what used to be the Local Health Integration Network, which is the body that manages and funds healthcare, different healthcare portfolio. Now it's Ontario Health. I want my services to be part of Ontario Health, to be integrated with public health. So if this is a resource that the community needs, John Doe or Jane Doe doesn't need to necessarily worry about, can I pay out of pocket, but can they call GoMedics to support me in my home, to support me with that transportation? So that's the challenge, is to get this into the mainstream healthcare system. And that's really what I need the support on and having the future conversations about.
Okay. Now, you mentioned a second ago that you work a lot outside of our community. Do you find that it's any different than working within the community in terms of acceptance, penetration, ease of use? Do they have set networks, or talk to what is that experience like?
No, I just think that outside the community, and I do mean the broader healthcare community, which is predominantly white, and they are the decision makers.
Yes.
And if one of the decision makers decide to give you a contract and say, I need your services, it's a done deal. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you go into a Black community, we're not the decision maker. We have to maybe connect with 3 or 4 other agencies, come together, make that decision, and maybe also compete in terms of funding. So the dynamics is very different. Whereas one, you're going directly to the purse string, whereas in our community, it requires a lot more collaboration and discussion around affordability than anything. Having said that, it can be done if we collaborate and really write this into our service delivery model. And that's what I would actually like to see more from the Black community. I understand those affordability issue and challenges, but if the service is needed, and it's most definitely needed, I think there's ways to get it funded by working collaboratively together to service just to have a broader reach as opposed to having it just in one pocket.
I agree with you on that one. Let me ask you a question though. I know at this point it's not generally covered, it's generally out of pocket. But what about individuals' works compensation or benefits plan? Does that cover any of them, or is there any type of insurance plan? Anything?
We're
that-
looking to work. We're looking to work with a few benefits program right now to do that. But again, you have to approach the individual company differently to say, is this something that your staff would need? I think it works better in a healthcare context. It works better as a plug-in within the larger healthcare system than you have to go to necessarily your benefits. And so that's the area we want to focus on, and that's where we kind of want to be right now. So post COVID, I want to see this as part of the larger healthcare system as an option. And really, I want to see the Black community have a specific resource for what we call home health, home and community health, and where we can get help, nursing services in your home within a cultural specific context.
Fabulous. For those who have joined throughout, we are speaking to Dwight Townsend, the president and CEO of GoMedix Health. He provides medical transportation to our and other communities, specifically targeting the aged seniors or our seniors,
Adults.
older adults. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. The older adults and those with impairments. And particularly, he's pivoted during the pandemic to provide pandemic transport, specifically for those who are testing, looking for vaccines, and we'll be expanding the services shortly to also include aftercare services as well. If you have any questions, feel free to look down in the chat on the bottom of your screen. You're going to see a functionality that says chat there. You can either write your questions there, or you can raise your hands. And you can raise your hand on one of the functions under the reactions button. Raise your hands and I'll allow you to ask a question itself. As we sit down there and pivot and talk about one of our leaders trying to expand within our community itself. So we've talked a bit now. We've talked a bit about not only, one of the questions over to you is, again, please, what is your contact information for GoMedix Health, your contact information if someone wants to get more information? What is your contact information?
So contact is 416-941-2424, and that is central intake. You'll get a live operator will connect you either for partnership inquiries or just to get a dispatch to get a job if you need somebody to be picked up. So you can also reach us at info@gomedixhealth.ca, and I'll put those in the chat as well.
Perfect. So let's go forward. So you've talked about your history. You talked about some of the obstacles you did come to start from your career perspective. You're pushing through. You talked about your pivoting. You talked about some of the things you're working on now and things you want to do in the future. What advice, what inspiration would you give to someone else looking to necessarily follow in this type of footsteps? Not necessarily doing what you're doing, but they see an opportunity. There's a lot of our potential entrepreneurs are looking to take on challenges now, but many are afraid because they're unaware, or there's a lot of obstacles, or they have bad credit, or they have bad this. What would you say to an individual such as that?
I think you definitely have to be an entrepreneur at heart. So for me, I've had challenges, but I've never really had to convince myself. I've never had to convince myself because I've always been very entrepreneurial or just industrious like that. So I think convincing yourself is half the battle. And I think once you don't have to convince yourself, you recognize that there are going to be challenges for sure. But my issue is my advice would just be perseverance and just ask for help along the way. There's a lot of people out there who are very supportive in helping you. And I know there's a lot of things that are happening in the Black community at a broader level that's going to really make or support entrepreneurs and Black businesses, and just make that journey and make that journey a lot easier for people who want to take that step. I don't have any magic response. I just say, love what you're doing, and as long as you believe and like the idea, I think everything will come. In every job that I've had in the last 10 years, my mind is always straight to what I wanted to do, either this or something else. And I think once you have that drive in terms of you have a good idea, you have an idea that you want to try and operationalize, I would definitely advise you to go for it, because you'll regret it if you don't. You'll really regret it if you don't.
Agreed with that one. Let me ask you, as part of your growth structure, not only to take you to this point and going forward, are you looking to grow individually? Are you doing via partnership? Are you looking to collaborate? And what advice would you give someone in regards to that? What advice would you give to others, and what are you doing?
Partnership for sure. I mean, partnership is everything that we do. Right now, we're actually branching out in a few other provinces. We have a deal going on right now in Alberta to become part of actually their healthcare system. So at the system level,
Okay.
they want to implement something similar to like Wheel-Trans. You know how they have Wheel-Trans here?
Let's stop for a quick second here. Let me stop for a quick second. This is the thing I don't like about we as a people. We take things and, take big things and make them so small. You just have to slide that in. You are now in a different province and you're getting part of the system. That is an actually phenomenal thing.
It's not there yet. It's getting there. It's a partnership.
Uh-oh.
As a professional, so I'm doing a lot of training too.
Uh-oh. Thank you. Okay, go ahead. Slide that in, ma'am. That is something big we need to celebrate. Let's talk about that.
So I started really branching out probably 3 months ago, and it's always I think you always have to think ahead, because a lot of people right now they're in vaccination mode. For me, I always say we're going to be remembering this pandemic. We're not going to be remembered for the amount of vaccination we give out. We're going to be remembered for the people who got left behind. And for me, it's all about servicing the people who don't have ready access. If you have ready access and you know you need a vaccine, you'll get a vaccine. Don't worry about those people. You need to worry about the people who are having challenges, why they're having the challenges, and how do you help them to overcome those challenges. And so we've taken some of the things we have done in Toronto or across the GTA, and I started reaching out to other provinces. I started reaching out to the Ministry of Health in Alberta. I started reaching out to Saskatchewan. I started reaching out to Manitoba. And we've gotten some really favorable results. And through those engagement, Calgary in particular, they want to look at getting us into their mainstream health. So just like you have Wheel-Trans here, they want to have something like Wheel-Trans in Calgary, but it's for medical reasons. So instead of John Doe calling in Calgary, they're going to say, okay, if you're really in need and it's a medical need, we're not going to put you on a general Wheel-Trans that they do in Toronto. We're going to take you out of that queue and put you in a Go Medics queue. And that way it saves up capacity for somebody else who wants to ride in the regular queue. And you also get a more tailored custom healthcare experience. So that's something that as a model, I thought about here, and I just pitched it there and they loved it. And we're in the process of really trying to make that a national program, not only with Calgary, but with Manitoba as well. And we're forming some really good partnerships. And we should really be in a much stronger position come in the new year, in terms of at least 4 partnerships that we're really going to be launching in the next by the December of this year.
Okay. Now going forward, just a total side note. This is just you and me speaking. Don't worry about the audience. Please don't describe it like you're changing the color paint on your buses or your transport. That's a phenomenal news. I'm very proud of you at that one. I think that's what we need. We need to have more success stories where we're seeing people actually making large or significant moves in large infrastructure systems. So I think that's phenomenal.
Thank you.
Do not be shy with that. Do not be shy at all. Publicize that and let that go, because again, that will give additional validation. The reality with oftentimes in our community, we think within our bubble, not recognizing that, no, the reality is we think that we can't do because we don't see others do. You're doing something phenomenal. So good for you on that. I think that's congratulations. I wish you a fabulous work on that. When do you find out? Is there a
So
projected?
we're working through the details right now. It's going to be a pilot.
Mhm.
We want to do it. We'd want to do it as a pilot and see the uptake in order, and then the next quarter we'll see what budget they have in order to make it part of their. Because that also requires us scaling. We're going to have more, significantly more vehicles. Right now we only have 6 vehicles, right? So that Calgary deal, we are going to need at least another 6. So it requires us to scale as well as them to scale.
Well, I'm not sure if you were listening over what happened this last weekend. There's an organization known as FACE and BAYS that actually come through that the different organizations are looking to support Black-led businesses. There's initiatives that came out that I think you would be a prime candidate for. Right now, we're doing some programs, not only this program right now, but there's another one called BAYS. There's a Level Up program, which is really showing people how to integrate and really access finances and capital to move forward and scale. And scaling is the ability to access funding within the system. You know, oftentimes you say we're blind, you can't achieve what you can't even conceive. Well, for those that can't conceive it, that's okay. You know, the reality is we weren't all meant to do it all, but we should all build on the backs of others. So your success right now, there's others that are in the financial realm. There's one that even mentioned on the show, they're also national. They may have some expertise that can say, listen, let me show you how and what channels we utilize to access funding, what channels we utilize to disseminate our information, what channels we utilize to further penetrate and bring proper systems allow us to easier scale. You know, I don't want to see you stub your toe on the same thing that 4 other people did before you, man. That's the whole process of us coming together as a community.
Yeah.
I absolutely love that. Now, yes, on there. And once again, if you go on the site, this is not only to you, but everyone there. There's a program called the BAYS program that's looking to support Black-led businesses with some of the resources that they need. Is that you, Bertha, raising your hand? I see a hand up. I'm not sure if that's you just covering it. Okay, well, you might be just covering it. For Bertha, and also, as I said, FACE Federation of African Canadian Economics. They are going to be a Black-led institution that will have some seed capital, but go on their site, you'll find some additional information on that one. Well, everyone on the site today, Dwight, we appreciate you, we applaud you, we raise you up, we lift your hands when you get tired, we push you forward and say congratulations. I'm looking forward to seeing the next phase to your success. I wish you God's blessings, and the truth be told, we know it's well needed. We want to thank you for coming out today and sharing your story today with us. I look forward to symbiotic growth with not only for yourself, but for our community have access to resources. For those that are in the audience today, we thank you again. I want to talk to you about some other programs that we have going on. The BBPA is really looking to move forward. We have been moving forward, been reaching out, we've been connecting not only for sources of business, but access to knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, access to resources to help our communities grow and scale, particularly in this environment. We have done a series of programs. This is the Ask the Professional series, which is every Wednesday at 12 o'clock. But we also have other additional programs. One being, if you come on Saturday at 10 o'clock to 11:30, we have a community space where we're trying to start the education process with some of our younger, those in high school and university. However, that is our target focus, but it's really for anyone that comes through. And what we're doing, we're partnering with some of the PhD professors in our local universities, which are teaching the fundamentals of business considerations, things such as economics, marketing, accounting. We're teaching our youth. We're teaching not just the youth in numbers, but youth of those in heart and in mind. So we can actually elevate. This is our time. We started off with our VP, Ross Kadas, actually coming in and talking about this is the anniversary of George Floyd was yesterday. And this is the time where we're pivoting and moving forward. I want to continue going through. Further on, next Tuesday, we have what is called the Level Up program, which is a funding and financing masterclass for Black-led businesses. We're in the middle of a cohort where we're doing a tied series called The Art of Negotiation, which really teaches businesses the fundamental understandings of what and how to negotiate. Because negotiation is one of the key challenges that we as a community lack, and oftentimes result in us either losing contracts or underbidding ourselves or understanding how to negotiate. We're in a Tide series and it's going from week 1 to week 4. And every week you learn it in something different, another piece, and you add on to it, This week we're going through, we're going to be talking about actually taking individuals from the audience and taking some of their personal and business situations and negotiating, showing them how the negotiation process. And Tuesday in the evening at 6 o'clock, led by our president herself, Miss Nadine Spencer, we have the Boss Woman program. And that program is targeted to women-led businesses. So community, we are looking to come out and sponsor, support, and disseminate information, resources to our community. Dwight, you are phenomenal today. We thank you for information you spread with us. We look forward to supporting you as well. And for those that came out, I would like to ask that you continue to come out, spread the word, let other people know what we're doing as the BBPA is looking to move higher to higher and higher and higher levels. And as we move up, we all move up.
Anton, it's Francis, if I can just interject. Next Tuesday's Ask a Professional. I'm sorry, I thought you had the graphic. It's getting to know your Caribbean Consular Corps. So we have members of the Caribbean Consular Corps next week. It's a panel. So we look forward to having you all. Thank you.